We have an entire course for those of you in the UX Master's Program. Well, anyone can take it, but it's required for you moving forward, which is inclusive UX design. And in that course, we talk all about how do we build effective experiences for everyone? And what does that look like? And how do we design with different populations in mind, different humans in mind, and all of that. So why is there not a good book lover app? Track my books, share with my friends. I don't know. There's just, for some reason, all of these apps just keep missing the mark. You let me know if you find one though.
I actually did find one. It's called Fable, and I
Fable.
really like it.
I think we all can relate to the situation where you're using an app and a button isn't where you expect it to be, or you click a button and you expect it to do something and it does something else, or a feature that you were sold doesn't quite work the way you were hoping that feature would work. And I think a lot of us can sort of, have a lot of negative criticisms of different user experiences, but at the end of the day, where a button is placed, those kinds of things, sometimes it's could be optimized, and sometimes it is, and it's just you. That's not the theme of this course, but button placement or a personal preference for something as poor value or a bad value proposition or a bad feature set or a bad product or a bad company. If there is one thing you take away from this class or any other class you ever have with me, it's that there are no bad products, period. There is only context and whether something meets the needs of the person in that context. Because some really bad experiences for you could be really good experiences for me. So businesses everywhere are making these choices oftentimes. And sometimes they make choices in the name of dollars and they sacrifice some of the user satisfaction. And that's where it leads to. But if something just doesn't really quite fit the way you'd prefer, it may not need to be changed. That may not actually be the outcome that you're pursuing. So try to separate your preference from the actual value that the app is providing. And that will serve you well in the workplace too, because sometimes you're going to have personal preferences that are not other people's personal preferences, or your data is going to come back and turns out you are unique and your data says that 80% of people like it the other way. The last thing I'll say on this topic is Netflix and autoplay is a great example. So if you get on a streaming platform, they all do it now, but originally it was Netflix's autoplay. You get on Netflix, and as you're browsing shows, it would just start playing a trailer or start playing the show up in the corner. And it still does something very much like that. And there was a section of the user population that freaked out. So Netflix added a toggle in their settings where you can turn that off so that things don't autoplay. Other streaming platforms, you can turn it off, or you can just turn the sound off. You can't turn the visuals off. Kind of interesting. But some people loved it because it depends on why you're sitting down to watch whatever you're going to watch. How much intention do you have? Do you want to be kind of served something kind of old school TV cable style? Or do you want to find something that fits your particular, needs right now and you have some intention around it? So different users, that was a very polarizing feature, but it did increase views for Netflix, so they weren't inclined to turn it off, as the default setting. It's a great example of that could really make some of us mad and that could really delight others of us. Does it mean it's a bad feature? No, I mean, it's all context. And Netflix is making a choice when they choose to keep that. Okay, so seems like it's an easy read. It's one of the reasons why I keep it as the text for this course. It's just kind of easy, and look how little it is. Just a little one. Yeah, so that's good, but it is a bit dated. So this version came out in 2022, 2023. So I mentioned we'll cover some of the AI things and how things are changing in class here together. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing, let's talk quickly about canvases. Okay, there's one, there's another. Okay, this was the business model canvas. Don't worry, you don't need to be able to read any of the text or what have you. I'm just kind of trying to give you a mental image of what this thing is. It is just a template that people fill out as a thought exercise. So it's just like a little, I don't know, kind of like taking a little personality test or something, only more, stakes, I guess. But the idea is you go through one of these canvases, and I think the business model canvas was Alex Osterwalder and some other guy who created this one. But you fill this out as you're coming up with your business idea, and it's kind of all of the things you would need to think through to have an airtight business plan. And if you're a startup and you're looking for like funding, your potential investors and, when you're pitching to folks, you need to have all of this figured out. They're going to ask you these questions. A lot of them will just ask you to, like, where's your business model canvas? On the following page is the lean product canvas. It's just a simplified version of the business model canvas that applies to types of businesses that are, well, I guess it applies to more easily to simpler businesses that maybe don't rely on a complex ecosystem of partners and supply chains and things like that. So you can think of it as like, it's just like a simplified version of the business model canvas. This is such a good thing to fill out for your project. I don't think most of you will have the information now to fill this out, but like a couple, I don't know, maybe a month from now, you all could fill this out and it would be a strong thing to add to maybe your final presentation, or if you're putting this in a UX portfolio, you might want to add it to your UX portfolio just to show that you've thought through these different elements of a business. So that's what those are. Questions on the canvases? Yeah, and just looking in the chat, Jamie did teach back in 2021. She taught this course. Ha! Yeah, she lives in LA. She's very sassy. Go to her talks. She's entertaining. Okay, whoops, wow, we'll go away. I guess my mouse is a little bit sensitive. Okay, we'll talk more about the different types of strategy and also value innovation, but let's give you something else to stare at for a minute. Coming back to our big question in the course, recalling from last week, we're trying to answer the question, how does one create a successful experience? Product, app, software, even business, service could apply here. But we're going to be focusing on experiences that have some kind of digital component because we're talking through the lens of UX. And one of the big things that I'm going to keep harping on is the product market fit pyramid here. So every experience, every mobile app and platform and what have you can be thought of as having some kind of target market with underserved needs. And then the product comes and serves those needs if it is successful. So that is the user experience being frictionless, usable, delightful, trustworthy, credible, all of these great things, the feature set that it offers, and the value proposition. The feature set that something offers is something to like kind of think about here. All of you, as you're coming up with your project idea, you're going to start thinking about like a product and all of the different features it could have. And there will be some features that are nice to have things or delightful things. And then there will be core key features that if the app doesn't have that feature, it's not delivering the value to the market. So I want you to be thinking a little bit as you're ideating around your project idea. I want you to be thinking about, are you being crystal clear with yourself as you're thinking through this of the capabilities and features that are absolutely necessary, that are key to delivering value, versus things that are just delightful or differentiating, like this is how it could be better than the competition. So think about features in this way. Is it key to delivering the value? Or is it just enriching the experience and creating maybe something that's more delightful or satisfying? We want to build up from value. We want to build up from that like product market fit line, which is the minimum viable product, MVP, the minimum feature set that delivers the value to the market. Getting concrete here. Let's go back to streaming. Netflix could just be when you sit down, you're snuggled in, and there it is up on your smart TV or your TV with some smart component. And let's say it pops up and it looks a lot like ChatGPT. It's just a text box like, what do you want to watch today? That could be the user experience for Netflix. It's just a search bar and you type in, I want to watch my favorite movie, Pulp Fiction. Don't judge me. And then there it goes. And then if it has that movie, it's there and I can click on it and watch it. That's like minimum viable Netflix, right? It's just a repository of videos. But instead, you get into Netflix, it has autoplay, it has top in the US, it has trending right now, it has personalization. So thinking about folks, oh, Emma's not in this course, but like we were just talking at UX Lunch about horror movies, right? So if you like horror movies, you get a little carousel of options that are like gritty horror movies that you like, right? Or that you could like. So there's that personalization bit. And yeah, to Annie's point, in the way back, Netflix was DVDs you got in the mail on this subscription. And they came in these little red envelope things. Yeah, some of you are nodding, you remember. But the brand Netflix is actually really interesting because they always knew they wanted to be cloud-based. That's why they're Netflix. Like they always knew they wanted to go in the direction that they're in. And that kind of actually gets to the next point, which is we're talking about the minimum feature set that delivers value. But then we also have like the vision of Netflix was people could watch whatever they wanted to watch on demand. That was like the vision. And now we have streaming services and everything's in the cloud and we pay subscriptions. And that's the business model, is like this subscription-based business model. So they've realized some of that original vision of like anyone can watch whatever they want on demand. Wow. But in the way back when, they were just sending you DVDs in the mail and sometimes they were really scratched. So yeah, lots of ways to think about. Sorry, I saw chat and I saw the word blockbuster and like there were just flashbacks in my mind. Lots of things to think about in terms of the vision. So we'll talk, let me make sure I'm not gonna, all right. Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about vision, strategy, and value proposition. But I want you to just have the product market fit pyramid in your mind. Okay, so we covered this a little bit last time. We also touched on the double diamond as a process, the UX process or the product development process, double diamond. What I want you to think about, so we talked about this is kind of like this linear, you discover and define the problem, and then you develop a solution and deliver that solution. That's the product development process in a nutshell, very simplified. And we talked about how we would really like for it to maybe be a little bit more of a circle, right? That all of these things happen kind of cyclically and iteratively. So we test and we learn and we pivot and we change. So one other way I want you to be thinking about the double diamond is this concept of the problem space and the solution space. I'm gonna watch for reactions of people who know what I'm talking about. Problem space, solution space, anyone? Anyone? Oh boy. So I get to be the one to share with most of you. Over here, we have the problem space. I'm not gonna write it out, problem, you get it. Over here, we have the solution space. And the idea is we need to understand the problem in the market, those unmet user needs. We need to deeply understand that to build the right solution. So process frameworks like the double diamond have this in a linear fashion where first you understand the problem. You really know that people everywhere want to watch what they want to watch and they don't want to be beholden to cable TV or have to go to Blockbuster to pick up videos. They want to watch what they want to watch on demand from anywhere. Wow, that's the problem in the world. And the solution could have been lots of things. I mean, now it seems pretty straightforward to have a streaming service in the cloud, but perhaps we had, what if DVDs had been dropped by drones? Millions of drones flying around. It's a little bit ridiculous because like operationally that's hard to manage, but it is a way. It is a possible way to get to that model we just described. Oh yeah, and like Dom says, Redbox, right? That started to get into that idea of, okay, here's a lightweight kiosk where I can go and get DVDs and I don't have to buy them. I'm just gonna watch them once. Yeah, okay, problem space, solution space. In the world of AI today, if your human brain can do this well, I'm gonna feel pretty good about you landing a job and keeping it, because it's really hard to do this well. And that is to be able to know when you are in the problem space and when you are in the solution space, and to be able to pull yourself into one or the other, depending on the conversation. So throughout this course, as you all submit your ideas for your project, you're going to get comments from me like problem space, solution space, and now you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about, because it's really important for us to know what space we're operating in. And that's what allows this to be cyclical in real life, to be iterative, is that not that we go out into the world, we find a problem, we understand it 100%, and then we go build the perfect solution all in one swoop in this linear step-by-step fashion. That's not how any of this works. Instead, we find what we think might be a problem. And then, I don't know, we throw together some prototype and we show it to people like, would this solve your problem? And then they go, kind of, but actually more like this. And then, oh, we better understand the problem. And then we go back and maybe we modify that prototype. Or maybe it's just a paragraph of text describing a mobile app. And we send that back to people. We test that. Like, okay, does this sound like it solves your problem? Yeah, that's starting to sound like it solves my problem. But I would also expect it would do other things. Oh, what do you expect? So that's how this works in the real world, is it's back and forth. But a lot of you, when you submit your assignment, I'm going to do my best to give you a framework that's going to help you stay in the problem space and the solution space separately. But a lot of you are going to submit a solution as your problem. And I'm going to send it back to you and say, solution space. And then you're going to need to come back with the problem. So we'll talk about some real examples, problem space, solution space. But now you have these terms in your mind. So any questions on problem space and solution space? Any anecdotes anyone has that relates to problem space and solution space?
Could we potentially talk about the video example a little bit deeper of like, what is the problem space within this? And then, Netflix is one solution, Redbox is another solution. So like maybe we can talk about that if that's possible, maybe.
Yeah, let's zoom into that. So the problem to solve was people before Netflix, before Redbox, even the problem that Blockbuster is solving. Do y'all remember Blockbuster? Can you give me a little vibe check there? Okay, at least 2/3 of you. Blockbuster was a video rental business, like Hollywood Videos or Blockbuster Videos. And you went there to get VHS or DVDs, maybe Blu-rays also overlapped. I don't even remember. It was all VHS when I was there. So you'd go to this place and you'd rent a video for 3 days or sometimes 5 days. Go home, watch it, bring it back. And you'd pay for the rental of this video. And what problem was that solving? Anyone want to take a stab at that? What problem did Blockbuster solve?
Not being able to need to go to the movies and pay more.
Yep. So not having to go to a theater, getting to watch the video in the comfort of your own home. What else?
You can also say
again.
You can also save the movie. If you have a particular, like you're able to actually copy the thing.
Oh yeah.
Storing the videos.
Yeah, I don't know that they wanted that, but that definitely happened. Teresa, thoughts?
Like reducing clutter so you don't like have the DVD forever in your house.
Yeah, you don't have to buy it. You don't have to own it. Well, it's great. Yeah, Don got it too. Well, you don't have to buy it. You don't have to buy it, and you don't have to go to the theater. You don't have to sit with a bunch of strangers, right? That's kind of what the VHS, the DVD, that's what they solved, is like, you don't have to go to the theater. You can watch this in the comfort of your own home if you have the right equipment. And then Blockbuster was like, oh, but you don't want to buy 200 VHS? You don't, and those things were chonkers. We had this bookshelf of VHS tapes growing up. So it was like all of the Disney movies and everything, right? So if you only watch things once or twice, it doesn't feel great to spend, I don't know, in the 90s, it was like $20 for a VHS, and that didn't feel good. DVDs, sometimes those were like $25. Oof, maybe even got up to 29 for like big ones. Yeah, so these were spendy things. If you could rent them for $5, that sounded a lot better. So now we have like this repository giving these things to people. The problem to solve was access to a wide variety of media that I don't have to own, and that I can pay a fraction to not own it, but to still use it. And this is a business model for like lots of stuff. anything you rent operates on that same business model, right? You rent a tiller for your backyard, for example. I don't have to own the tiller. I can just go rent one from Home Depot. Great. So that's the problem. The solution was this model, like rentals. And Netflix and streaming services took it one step further. Now you don't have to have something physical. You can just log in from anywhere. You just have to have the device, your laptop, the smart TV. And now you have access to not just hundreds, but thousands of videos, thousands of movies and TV shows. And it has changed the way we view media this way. TV shows used to be something very different, and now they are like elongated films a lot of the times, and quality of TV shows is getting so good over the past 20 years. Yeah. So I hope that kind of helps. The solution could have been a lot of things. Like I said, drones flying around dropping DVDs at you with a bunch of little warehouses that they go get them from. But instead, we're storing in the cloud. Yeah, Sean?
I think in Netflix story too, like what's kind of like a more interesting aspect of that story is when the movie companies stopped wanting to give them videos, right? And they started wanting to give them access to their movies. And they're like, well, why don't we just make our own content? You know, it's because they stopped wanting to license them things. So they had so much money. They're just like, well, we'll just make our own content. And so they started just they just started creating their own content, and then they changed the content game too. I thought that was like that was one of the most significant like shifts in Hollywood, because then Prime started doing the same thing. It kind of, they did these crazy productions like, what was that, Marco Polo, which was like, they threw so much money into this, this huge production in Asia that, people just weren't doing at the time. They were, doing these huge productions, and it kind of changed like the whole landscape of the movie industry.
Yeah, so to just broaden what Sean's saying a little bit is, when we have a new business model, when we have innovation, a new way of delivering value to a market, that's innovation. When we have a new business model or a new innovation like this, it can have these ripple effects as all of the whole ecosystem that industry was situated in has to react to this new disruption. So, and we're continuing to see that. I think there are so many ripple effects from streaming, just like Spotify and music, and moving from purchasing albums to streaming via subscription service. So all of these things have these ripple effects on all of the ecosystem around them. And yeah, this is all a very fascinating thing to watch. And we're going to see even more disruption and innovation, I think, with new technology. Did you have a thought?
Maybe a follow-up question. So when a new solution comes to the market, and then like, do new problems emerge, or
Always.
Or are they like the same problems that existed? Because like when I think of Netflix, it was like more movies at your disposal, but also like humans then decided like, our problem is we don't want to have to drive to go pick up a movie. So is that the new problem that Blockbuster wasn't able to solve?
Yeah, so I guess two things that you're touching on very well. The first thing is, what is a problem? And sometimes, most of the time, people aren't conscious of the opportunity to have value. So they may not be walking around going, why? Why does Blockbuster exist and not a cloud-based streaming service, right? Like, before that paradigm was formed, people didn't feel this active pain, but there was just opportunity to deliver value faster as the technology changed, because it wasn't always, we couldn't have put the amount of data in the cloud back in the mid-90s. Like, we couldn't have done that and had a streaming platform, because it took like an hour just to dial up into the internet sometimes. So you're right that like the landscape of what the problem is constantly changing, not just from things like the technology and things that are playing in the space, but the consumer or the user's expectations change. Great example right now, when you Google something, you're now expecting, after the past 3 years, you're expecting an AI summary at the top. Your expectations have changed. And now, whether you've really noticed this or not, lots of websites for their search are providing you an AI summary at the top of search results, because this is a new expectation that you have as a user, that you may not even really realize you have that expectation. But eventually, if that's missing, you're going to be like, where's my summary? I don't want to read through all these search results. So great
Got it.
point. Like, this is a constantly evolving landscape. And businesses, I mean, it's never one and done. That's why it's so fun, is because you have to keep up and you have to ride the waves to kind of connect this to blue ocean, red ocean, right? It's this constantly changing space. Okay, so I think you're starting to get a sense here of like value delivery, problem space, solution space. Can we, as we ideate, stay in the problem space, or, fix the problem, because it's going to change on us too, probably, but fix the problem and then stay in the solution space and ideate around that, generate lots of different solutions. So all of these things you can be thinking about during your final project journey. I'm going to skip these. I was just going to draw the problem space and solution space on these, but it's just a paradigm. It's a pattern you'll see over and over again, that like there's kind of the problem space and kind of the solution space in all of these frameworks, because we have a really hard time not thinking about this in a linear way, when really it is very back and forth, jumping between those two things. Okay, so that's problem space and solution space. The second thing I want to talk about today is value proposition. And then we'll have a little bit of fun. Spoiler, be thinking a little bit about like a brand or an app that you like. Be thinking about that. I'll ask you again. So product market fit, value proposition. I want to get a really clear shared definition of value proposition. A value prop is just a concise statement that explains how the product, the business, the experience is meeting the needs of the market. It's just a concise little statement. And it relates to vision, which was briefly touched on in the book, and it also relates to strategy. So strategy is a weird word, and I have many strong feelings about this. Let me pick pink. Okay, strategy is like, well, one example I've used in the past is, let's imagine there's, okay, I'm going to go to my rob a bank example. Let's imagine we're going to rob a bank. Don't ask why. Let's pretend it's altruistic. I don't know. But like, we want to rob a bank. And to know whether you decide to be in on robbing the bank, I tell you like, okay, I'm robbing a bank. Who's in on it? Who's going to rob the bank with me? You're going to ask me 2 questions. Why are we robbing the bank? It was the first question I tried to answer. Pretend it's altruistic. I don't know. But let's pretend it's a really good, we're going to save the world by robbing a bank somehow. That's the why. The second is how. What is your strategy for robbing the bank? What is your strategy for robbing the bank? There are so many ways to rob a bank. You could use dynamite. You could just blow up the side of the building and walk into the safe. I don't know. You could go in. Okay, we won't get into other things. You could do this all digitally. Right? It's a cyber attack. That's a strategy. You could just ransom the bank company with some kind of information about the CEO, right? Lots of strategies to rob a bank. So I tell you about that example because for some reason, when we start talking about the word strategy in business, it takes on like this ethereal, magical something. And we can never really pin down what strategy means. But we all want to be strategists and we all want to be strategizing, but we don't really know what it means. It's how are you going to achieve your vision, your goal? Rob the bank. How are you going to get there? Lots of ways to get there. A real world example from work one time. I worked for an e-commerce company, women's lifestyle and clothing products. That's what it was like a marketplace, kind of like Etsy, but a lot of women's clothing, boutiques type stuff. So we were in a strategy session and the founder was arguing about how we should open up the platform to allow different product types into the marketplace. And I said, would you sell tires on the marketplace? It was a women's lifestyle and clothing company. And he was trying to argue that we should, more products. And I said, would you sell tires? And then he was like, no, I wouldn't sell tires. Like, okay, so I guess there is a limit to the product offerings. And somehow that relates to our brand and identity as a company. So instead of saying we should sell more, you need to say what we should add that works with our brand identity. Otherwise, we could end up selling tires and we would have a very different company on our hands. So yes, it was not my most delicate day. It was like 4 hours into some running in circles meeting. So the point is, when it comes to making money, which is usually what we're doing for some organization, but sometimes it's not. It's like could be selling things, but could also be getting donations or funding, or could be just getting users in the case of government, like federal works. We want people to come into this program and use it, right? Whatever our outcome is, there's usually a lot of ways to get there. There's a lot of ways to make money. You can sell tires, but the strategy is how are we going to make money? We're going to be, in that case, the strategy ended up becoming we want things on our platform that our audience, which was mostly Midwestern and Southern women, who often were like teachers and nurses, we want a platform where they can get things that they can't easily get anywhere else. Things that were exciting to them that they couldn't easily get anywhere else. So it was the unique outfit that their friends don't have. That was kind of the platform. It was boutique, it was curated. So that was a strategy. So as you're thinking about like, you're going to come up with your problem to solve. And I bet lots of you are starting to have like the seeds of problems that you may want to solve with your final project. The strategy layer, how you're going to solve that problem, is how you start walking into the solution space from the problem space. It's whether your solution is a mobile app or an online platform or a chatbot or a kiosk in the mall. Any of these things could be the strategy to solving your problem. Teresa?
I'm wondering, are usually like the most successful products the ones that were thought up by people who had experienced that problem, or is it just sometimes from like you observing other people's problems? Like I know it's not probably a prerequisite if you experience it, but like I'm just wondering like in the real world, what is typically more successful?
Yeah, I can give you my take on that from my experience, but anyone who wants to chime in, I'd be curious if other folks have similar experiences. In my experience, when a founder of a company has the pain, it can be lightning in a bottle. It can be so good because they have empathy and understand their user base more than someone who hasn't firsthand experienced that pain. However, they can also get tunnel vision and the kill your darlings problem, where they think the way I experience the problem is the way everyone experiences the problem. So there can be a lot more emotion going on, and a lot more like when you have data that refutes your personal experience and you have the passion to build a product based on your personal experience, those two things are really at odds and it can be really uncomfortable. So that's my experience, is like it can be magic and it can also be really, really hard. And usually our superpowers are also our weaknesses, right? In some way. And that's one of those cases where it's like it's kind of a superpower and it can be a weakness depending on like how that presents. So good question. Many of you will do something that is personal to you, something that you have experienced, like a pain you have experienced. And you'll come up against this problem where if the data isn't aligned with your experience, how will you reconcile that? Abigail, do you have a thought?
And that actually Bill already stated in the comments that we go with, which is to do the research or observation, whatever. And when I think a common mistake is when we gather the problem, it's really easy to rush to solutions.
Yes.
And then like usually even if a strategy is stated at the very beginning, it will somehow get lost during the ideation phase. So I'm just wondering, like, is there a way to fit the strategy thoroughly in the product ideations and execution phase? And then like how are the criteria for a long-lived strategy?
Yeah. So Bill's kind of saying this in the chat, like you mentioned, it's easy for us to rush to the solution space. And I won't sugarcoat this. It's a tricky dance. On the one hand, if you don't get a solution created, especially that minimum viable product, that MVP, if you don't get something created, it's really hard to collect true information on the product. because someone may say that they're going to buy something, but whether we want to buy something or, you know, we think we'd want to buy something or we actually buy something can look very different. So until you have something tangible, sometimes people can't wrap their heads around the solution. And also they can't self-report very well on whether they would make a purchase. So there's a little bit of risk you always have to take during this, where you want to build something. Getting something out the door is valuable. Sometimes it's the fastest way to learn, is to just get something out there and see how the market reacts. But if you spend too much money creating that something and then you find out it failed, maybe a little bit of research could have saved you $10 million. So it's this little tricky dance. And my advice when you all are navigating this is, what is the risk? How much does it cost? And what is the smallest valuable chunk you could create, and how much does that cost? And if the business is okay with that, or let's say it's an entrepreneur and they're saying, oh yeah, I'll spend $50,000 on this venture. It's like, okay, well, can we release something with $50,000 worth of investment here? And can we learn from that? So managing the risk is this delicate balance. Hannah?
I can also ask like other people who are entrepreneurships, like maybe Dom, but I'll ask you as well. I have several friends who want to be entrepreneurs and they always talk about like risk, risk, risk. Like I'm willing to take the risk. I'm willing to see how I can put myself out there. But like, is it always, I guess, like worth the risk to try and fit yourself in there, knowing that it may or may not work in the end? I'm just kind of curious.
Well, 95% of businesses fail. And those are the trackable ones. So is it worth the risk? Depends on your appetite for risk, I suppose. I think, I don't know, I don't want to get too philosophical. If other folks have thoughts, feelings on this, I invite comments.
Yeah, I'll keep it short and brief. I'm going through this right now. The number one goal is to de-risk whatever idea you have. And the number one way to do that is you understand the user's needs and you build something that they want. Like that's business straight up. Yeah.
And can I even like de-risking means minimizing the amount of money you spend without certainty that you'll get it back, right? That's what we're talking about when we're saying de-risk in terms of business. The other thing about risk is it really depends on the company's maturity. So large companies might not miss $1 million failed investment. I have personally, I think my record was like $6 million loss on one decision I made for a company. But, you know, I'll keep trying. I'll keep trying to get that number up. Yeah, no pressure. So I think it's just one of those things where sometimes we make decisions, we take actions, and the outcome doesn't come through that we were expecting. The real failed situation in a mature company is you don't learn what you should have done from that. So in a really mature business when they can take these kinds of risks, it's all about measuring and making sure that on the way to trying these attempts at delivering value, we're also getting a feedback loop. So if it does fail, we can recoup our costs on the next venture. So measurement is also really key. But yeah, thanks for sharing, Dom, and thanks for bringing that up, Hannah. I think a lot of folks who are in the UX Masters program, who are working in my lab, you're going to end up working with startups. You're going to end up working with entrepreneurs. It's kind of inevitable when you're in my program. So be mindful of this kind of delicate space where a lot of businesses fail, and we are trying to de-risk. We're trying to reduce our costs, and energy and time is also wrapped up into cost to learn what we need to learn to be successful. Okay, so let's actually remember when I mentioned, what are some products you like or brands? Mobile apps, any like lifestyle brands? Throw them in the chat if you're comfortable. What are some brands, apps, things you like? Ooh, some good ones. Yes, so we've got TikTok, ClassPass, Letterboxd, Canva, XPen, Spotify, Headspace, Canva, YouTube Music, Pinterest, Notion, Pinterest, Canva, GoodNotes, Substack. Me too, Yuli. Canva, Calm, totally Annie. Yeah, and Headspace too. Who said that one? Let's see. Headspace was Abigail. Yep. YouTube, Strava. Good one, yeah. Freeform, WeChat, Duolingo. Okay, we had Canva a few times. Does anyone who knows Canva? Go ahead. Physical digital hand. Okay. Canva. Okay. All right. Canva is a design tool used to create all kinds of things, everything from print to digital assets. So it's a design tool. What do you think Canva value proposition is? What are they trying to deliver to what market? Drop it in the chat or raise your hand if you feel bold and want to speak it aloud.
Able to create like simple designs for free.
Simple designs, maybe for
I guess
free.
something to compete somewhat sort of with Adobe, because Adobe, as we all know, is extremely expensive. It's not a one-time purchase, it's subscription based. For people who are interested in Adobe but just don't want to pay for that, Canva is a great alternative.
Great. Okay, loving it. And you're making a comparison to another design tool in this space. I'm seeing simple design. I'm seeing accessible design, professional quality without industry standard tools. Be your own graphic designer. Love it, Sean. Beginner friendly design app. Very good. Free or low cost.
It's almost like you can be a graphic designer too. Everyone can design. We have templates for you to ease into these design work if you need it, but you don't need to like curate your own design from scratch. We have elements to help you with that.
Yes. Let me pull this up. Rhubarb, did you have a thought?
The majority everyone else covered, so I don't need to say it, but you asked about the target audience.
Yes.
I believe it is very usable for every single person who wants to either make their resume or they want to make like a cover or they want to apply somewhere. It's very easy to use, and it's also like beginner friendly, and you cannot go wrong with while using Canva. So I really adore that. Like I used to use it a lot, but now I'm going to try not to follow their template and try to make my own.
Yeah, Sean, what's your thought on Canva?
I was going to say the value proposition is self-sufficiency. So like you have an idea or you have like something you need to promote and you can just create it yourself instead of relying on having to be like, hey, do you know a graphic designer? Or, it's just self-sufficiency with your business.
Yeah. And you mentioned the word business. So you're all absolutely right. Canva was created in response to tools, to Grace's point, in response to tools like Adobe Platform, Creative Cloud Suite, in response to the need that many people have for a low budget, low skill, we're not graphic designers by trade, solution to getting these digital assets. I just need to make a flyer for the community symphony I'm in. I don't need to learn how to be a graphic designer. Gauri, do you have a thought?
Yeah, I was going to talk about how I'm impressed with the way they have integrated AI in it. So that's something that I like about it.
Yeah. I also want to call out what many of you said. You mentioned the word free, like Grace said it. It was said in the chat a couple times. So Canva does have a freemium business model, which is when it comes to their strategy for how do we get people a solution where they can create digital assets that look pretty professional without the skills and without the high cost of these tools or services. So that's that value proposition. And the way they're going to do it is by having this freemium model where there's a low barrier to entry. So you can jump in on a free license, try out Canva, love it, and then pay for it because you're already using it, you're investing. This is where we get into psychology, right? Like there's this sunk cost principle in cognition and in social psych where we're putting effort into this tool and we're creating all of these assets within this tool. And so now it holds more and more value to us. So you're right. This is Canva's value proposition. This is their business model, freemium business model. And their strategy is to be the design platform for everyone who doesn't have the skills, empowering the world to design, empowering the world to design. So this would be like their mission or vision statement, which is usually just a rephrasing of their value proposition in like marketing, branding, fun, pithy succinct kind of statement is your vision statement or your mission statement. So this is their mission. They have values, commitments, etc. Great. So you're starting to see how value delivery. There are lots of other players in the space of Canva. There's Adobe. There's Figma. There's Adobe. Okay, so there are a few giants in this space, right? Okay, there was Sketch. But that's kind of for UI. Like there's some other tools out there. Where do you think people are going before? Maybe PowerPoint, right? Maybe Google Draw or something. So there are all kinds of tools kind of playing in this space. Direct competitors, indirect competitors. We'll talk about that in a couple weeks, but they found a group with unmet needs and they created a way to meet those needs. And that group was willing to pay for it. And that's when we have a successful business. Oh yeah, Envision, Paint, great. Okay, thank you for sharing some of your apps and things. Jumping into, let's see, some other value props, just to hit this point home a little bit. Slack. So this is like their vision statement with a little bit of value prop language here. All your tools in one place. Connect all the tools you use in Slack. Avoid constant switching. Set up your integrations. Get all your notifications directly within Slack. So kind of like their value proposition and their strategy, you can see that they have this partnership strategy. They're all about integrating with other tools to make Slack the source of truth. It's not just communicating with your colleagues. It's about integrating and being the hub for all of your notifications across the applications you use for work. Lyft and Uber. I think it's interesting sometimes as you're going through this, one of the exercises you'll do is to find competitors of your project idea. And it's interesting to see how competitors are differentiating themselves. So like, how is Lyft different than Uber, for example? And in this case, these aren't super compatible because this is for drivers and this one's for the consumer, the person getting the ride. But looking at those kinds of things will help you tease apart the strategy that is different between these two competitors, essentially. Okay, so kind of a formula for value prop or even a vision statement. We help people do thing through or by this. So Airbnb is trying to create a world where anyone can belong anywhere. So that's kind of a fluffy statement, more of a vision statement. Providing healthy travel that is local, authentic, diverse, inclusive, and sustainable. These are more like core values. So we're going to help travelers go where they want to go, belong by their business model, which is this distributed, what's the word for the people who own the Airbnbs? Like this owner platform service. Hosts, thank you. Yes, thank you. Through that kind of business model. So if you were to fill out a business model canvas on Airbnb or Canva, these are the kinds of things that it would try to help you tease out. So like, what's your value that you're delivering? How are you delivering it? Who's your target market? What are you doing? And of course, so much of strategy and value prop is what you're not doing, what you choose to not do, who you choose to not serve. So we'll talk more about that as well next class in terms of like, it's really about what you're not doing and who you're not serving will define your brand, your strategy, and your value. Teaser. Okay, I want to just show you some project examples and then send you away with homework 1. Does anyone have, before we just switch gears into thinking about your projects and stuff, anyone have any questions or final thoughts on value prop, problem space, solution space?
I know this is kind of backward, but I wonder if you can think about a problem space by working backward. Like you deliver a solution and then, like you said, it's like we go out to the market, test the solution, didn't work. What's the problem that people are experiencing? And then come into play with the problem space or developing the problem space that way. But I feel like that would also be a pathway to destruction of the product that you're trying to create.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I mean, this is a cycle. And if I were taking a contractor role, I had 2 companies who wanted to hire me as a contractor. One of them had a solution that was just someone's whim and they built it for cheap. And the other one had a really deep understanding of the problem space, but had no idea how they were going to realize a solution from it. I might actually take the solution one, Because it's a lot easier to test a hypothesis when you have something. It's a lot easier to say, like, these are all the ways it's not working. These are all the ways it's working, rather than to create and craft a solution from a problem. So it very much, you can work backwards on this. And that is a good segue into how I suggest you do your project work. So let's look at an example of a previous student's final presentation.
Professor,
Yeah.
in regards to the project, what if you already are coming in with a problem that you wish to solve? Are you still requesting 3 to 5, I believe, different types of problems to solve?
If you really know what you want to do and there's like no wiggle room in your mind, like if you really are set on something, submit that and submit that in detail. So then I can help guide you within that path rather than the goal of this assignment. You could totally bomb this assignment. None of you are probably going to get less, I mean, unless you don't turn it in or don't follow the rules at all. Don't try at all. You're not going to get less than a C on this assignment, because the point of this assignment is for me to give you feedback so that you have a project idea that can weather the storm of this course. So my advice, if you already have a really solid product idea and you're really confident about that, yeah, just give me all the details you can about it so I can give you feedback and help you poke holes in it and kind of refine it up. But most of you will be submitting 2 or 3 different problem ideas. And when I say problem, like project ideas, and I will tell you which one is best suited for this course. But yeah, use your best judgment. This is an assignment just for me to read what's in your head and then share with you what I think about it. And the grade is just something that happens along the way. Yeah, to Bill's point, like using Serena's backwards approach on an existing solution, that is a great way to start thinking about the problem space. If this all feels vague and strange and like, how are you going to come up with a problem? Think about a solution and then work backwards. Think about a solution you're really passionate about. Think about a solution that failed you recently. You know, all of the things you shared in that first discussion, perhaps. How could that be different or better? So I think that's a good approach. Yeah. So project, I'm going to show you some examples. That's where we were. Okay. So this woman's name was Jessica, and her product was an app called Knuckle Up. Jessica was a jujitsu person, did a lot of jujitsu. And what she noticed was people who did any kind of martial arts need sparring and training partners. So they need folks to practice with. They need folks who are also doing jujitsu or whatever other martial art and want to go to the gym together and do, like, I don't know, the exercises like for wrist mobility together or that kind of stuff. So looking for partners who are passionate about martial arts. You can tell I've not done much in the way of martial arts. Is that clear? Yeah. So what's the problem, she says? Well, today you have to train at an expensive gym if you want to find other people who want to do your martial arts. So it's like you go to the jujitsu gym, for example, and it's pricey. And or you know, maybe want to train with a friend, but none of your friends do jujitsu. So now what? Maybe then you try to find people online, and it's really hard to do that. So you join a Facebook group or you join subreddit or something, and you're trying to find people. Yeah. So this is the problem she was trying to solve. Whoops. So she says, we help martial artists find training partners by using Knuckle Up. And she did some qualitative interviews and a competitive analysis to kind of support this project. She kind of outlines her research questions and methods here. And she made these mock-ups, these designs to show to actual users to get their reactions during qualitative interviews. Notice that these are not polished designs. That is acceptable in this course. I have a slightly higher bar now that we have AI, and we'll talk about how to leverage that. But one thing she didn't do was leverage some of the tools that you will have available. So your stuff should look even more polished than this. So she created this mock-up, she tested this concept, and unfortunately for Jessica, she actually found out that people won't use this. So she interviewed 7 people at her martial arts gym, and every single person said no, thumbs down, won't do it. And the reason was because based on this, they didn't feel like there was enough information in a profile that they'd want to go meet a stranger to do something like spar with or go to the gym with. There just wasn't enough trust there. So trust was a huge thing, and confidence, and therefore this was a failure in this particular conceptualization of this application. But she learned a whole bunch of things, right? She learned that trust was like this primary driver for people, and how do you connect people, and is it more about like connecting with people you've already met in real life, or so she had a lot of follow-up things to say and kind of talks through that. So this example, she didn't get the best grade in the class, but I think she did a lot of things really well here. She had a clear goal. It came from like a personal thing. She talked to real users, like real potential users at her martial arts gym. And she went through this methodically using qualitative, and, she could have done some surveys as well. She did a concept test. We'll talk about what that is. And that was that. So this example is available on Canvas for you to look at. This was just her final presentation. For every assignment, I'm going to show you examples. So this is going to be continually demystified, but I'm just kind of giving you this high-level view of what your final project could look like. Does anyone have questions on this?
Do you also have a successful example?
I don't know that anyone has walked out of this class being like, I could build it now. But there have been a lot of really promising, like, yeah, you could keep going with this. I'm trying to think. One person had a dream tracking app that it was kind of like a community focused dream journal. And that one held up with the audience pretty okay. So I'll have to think of some other ones. I'll definitely show you more and more examples from previous classes.
Is there any element of the grade that's associated with like the follow-up, like figuring out more information? Like, yes, the initial 7 said that they would not use it, but what if there was some sort of validation process or verification from like dojo masters or something that then instills trust, essentially? Is any of that a part of the grading?
Yes. So coming up with what you might do next and drawing conclusions that are compelling is part of your grade. You won't be graded on whether your product idea was amazing or not, but you'll be graded on your methodology and the conclusions or the insights you draw and how compelling they are. So what I'm viewing you all as is like, if you went for this company and you did this work and this wasn't, your project idea, and then you're with the founder or CEO or whoever, and you're saying, hey, your new app it's not going to succeed in the market this way. The very next question will be like, well, how could it succeed? Like, what would it need to have? What was the problem? And you're going to need to be able to speak to that in a way that could give that person some path to revenue, hypothetically, one day. So what to test next, what to try next. The next thing she said was, we need to understand trust. We need to understand how people find sparring partners that are strangers in the first place. So we need to go back to the problem space a little bit and unpack that piece of it. So continued research is usually the conclusion a lot of people draw is like, I want to do continued research on these new constructs or themes. Yeah, great. Okay, so thoughts? Anything else?
So just to reiterate, for this upcoming assignment, we are not detailing a solution. We might suggest a solution, but it's mainly just detailing a problem. That's it. We're not actually giving you a solution.
So I'm actually going to have, for homework 1, good question. Y'all are really good at just segueing right into the next thing. For homework 1, select 3 to 5 problems. It can be 2. I'm okay with that. 2 solid problems. I don't want you to just come up with things to fill up the space. Problems that could be solved. For each problem, take a guess at the target segment that could benefit uniquely from a solution. Rephrase one of your problems, just one. So in Grace's case, she's going to submit one, so she's going to do just one the whole way down. But a lot of you are going to do 2, 3. So pick one and rephrase at least one of them as a hypothesis, something testable, and use the radical product statement on that one. What is the radical product vision statement? You're going to fill out this template. Today, when martial arts enthusiasts want to find sparring partners and people to train with, they have to join an expensive gym or connect with strangers online. This is unacceptable because talking to strangers and paying a lot of money shouldn't be the barrier to finding someone to spar with, or, what have you. This could get kind of long, actually, the shortcomings of the current solutions. We envision a world where martial artists can find each other geographically and with interests in mind to form these partnerships. We're bringing about this world through a mobile app focused on martial arts community building and partner matching. So you'll notice this last statement is a solution statement. So the whole, most of homework 1 is problem, problem, problem. And then I ask you to come up with some testable hypotheses. I'll show you an example. And then I ask you to fill out this template where you start walking into solutions. Teresa, thoughts?
I was going to ask about the hypothesis, but I think you said
let's look.
So I was just wondering if it's something that has to be kind of that we will be able to track, or sometimes I feel like there's a percentage that people put, but obviously we won't be having the product for that long, so we won't be able to track that.
Yes. So you won't have a lot of data by the end of your project. This is a very small sample size qualitative project. I don't know, a few students have given me a run for my money on that statement, but most of you are going to come up with you're going to have conducted research with 10 or fewer people by the end of this. So when it comes to the hypothesis statement, I am looking for, I think I even put this in the assignment description, but I'm looking for, if you had unlimited resources, what is the hypothetical measurable thing? You had unlimited resources. So in the martial arts example, it would be the number of people who successfully find a partner to spar with, to train with, actually meeting up in real life. We want to increase the number of people who are able to find other folks to meet up with in real life. Now, we don't have the means to measure that very well, but I want you to be thinking about measurement, and you're not going to be graded very much on the hypothesis, which I think, again, is in the assignment description, but just walking into how might you measure this if you had unlimited resources? What metrics in the world would actually move? And try not to just say happiness. Try to get specific. It's the number of people who are finding sparring partners. Yeah, so that's the goal of the hypothesis statement. My example that's on Canvas for you to review of homework 1 is related to cats. So this is an AI generated image from 2023. Oh, how far we've come. I thought it was cute, so I put it in here. In my neighborhood, there are a lot of cats. Utah, I don't know, we have outdoor cats, even though we have horrible winters. So lots of outdoor cats out there. I love cats. I can't have one. My partner's very allergic. But I love the neighbor cats. I have little names for all of them. And I worry about them. Sometimes they look awful skinny. And I'm are you somebody's, or should I catch you and take you in? And then I'll try to find them and, oh, you have a collar on. Okay, cool. So I worry about the cats. One possible solution could be that I build a cat loving serving robot for the neighborhood, right? I have this anxiety. I don't want to talk to my neighbors. Don't really like them. I mean, I do, but I don't want to talk to people. So what if I built a robot and it just kept tabs on the cats for me, right? AI, right? So what if I just had a robot that chooched around the neighborhood and just kept tabs on all the cats? And then I could ask the robot, or better yet, I could log into my mobile app, Catbot, and ask about my community cats, and it would tell me these are the strays and these ones have homes and all of this. Okay, so that's my problem, and then my solution is Catbot, which is a terrible solution. Lots of ways to solve my problem, right? It's almost like I did this intentionally bad. So here's my homework 1. I had 2 ideas. One was a sticker you could put on yourself that would tell you when to reapply sunscreen. And I would like the sticker to actually change color as I need to apply sunscreen as it gets sun exposure. And bonus points if I don't apply sunscreen and I get a sunburn, I want the sticker to have a frowny face, a sunburned frowny face on my arm, because consequences. If any of you have tried to put sunscreen on a child, yeah, this is where my mind's going, okay? And then we just look at our stickers. And now, oh, looks like your sticker's turning blue. We better reapply sunscreen, or else you'll get the frowny face on your arm. Yeah, Annie gets it, no one else. So if you ever try to put sunscreen on a wiggly 6-year-old, this is what happens. Okay, So that was my one idea, but you know, it's not a digital product. So we moved along to Catbot and my, you know, problems with the cats in the neighborhood. So at first, hey, just give me your thoughts, context, ideas, whatever. Problem solution can be all mucked up in here. Totally fine. Just want a paragraph of your thoughts. Then pull out the problem statements. Only the problem statements. Then take a stab at the target market. Cat lovers, people who feel responsibility for animals, what have you. Then try to come up with a testable hypothesis. When users wear the sunscreen sticker, they get fewer sunburns, hypothetically, if I could measure it. Then fill out the radical product statement template. Today, when families who wear sunscreen have to it's unacceptable, all that. What are you all thinking? What I'm thinking. We live in the age of AI. So here's an example of an assignment that's kind of silly. And then you have your idea. And then you also have the assignment description. So if you don't want to put your product idea into a public LLM, totally fine. Ignore what I'm about to say. Although CGU has our version of GPT now, and that's pretty locked down on like data privacy stuff, but you can look into that if you're worried. Anyway, see me on Slack if you're worried about that. But if you're not so attached to your product idea, not so attached to your project idea, like riff with AI on this and try to get your homework one submission, like try to pull out the problem statements. What you're going to find is that there are lots of ways and lenses you can look at whatever problems in your mind. And if you want to pull apart and like start thinking about different types of solutions, that's another great thing to ideate with your favorite chatbot around different solutions. So I invite that. I hope you're all going to do that as part of this assignment. If you have data concerns, totally fine. You can ignore that or see me and we'll talk through how you might be able to get around those concerns. Questions? I can't wait for your product ideas. Oh, I'm so excited. This is my favorite assignment to grade.
I have a question.
Yes.
What would you do nowadays on this exercise? Like, what areas of interest do you have?
Oh, I come up with product ideas every single day. Yeah, my friends get really annoyed because like I'll tell them in group chat. The most recent one was not a digital thing. Imagine you melted a lot of crayons. Okay, that's not a great way to start this. Imagine, okay, you know, carving wood. Okay, what I want is I want a block of rainbow melted wax that is easy to carve with tools so that I can, Sean gets it already somehow. Yeah, I want this rainbow layered block so that I can carve something out of it as if I was doing wood carving. Dom regrets asking this question. Abigail?
I'm just curious, like, usually, how do you know if an idea is worth being a product idea? Because reflecting back, I think I have like improvement ideas for existing products all the time, but to whether justify it as a new product idea is like a different thing. And usually, like, at the end of the day, I just realize that the existing product might need some improvement rather than giving birth to another product just only solve like one problem. So yeah, like how impactful a problem that usually could be turned into a product is the thing that like curious about, because if just generating ideas could be 1,000 and some like extension product could be successful, but some other times like a product needs to be a comprehensive thing to receive like market feed and appreciations. So I just don't really know like how can I know which deserve to be a product.
Yes, you are not the first person in this class to ask that question. Some students previously have come up with an add-on to an existing product. For example, someone came up with a robust new feature for a streaming platform, and the idea would be like to sell it to Netflix. So it was kind of like this add-on product. I am totally okay with those ideas. In fact, they come across really well in your UX portfolio because it shows that you're really grounded in reality and you can think about things like, you know, how a technology can be acquired by another company or something. So I'm all for that. If you have those kinds of ideas that are like half, I won't even call them half baked, like they're not an entire product all by themselves, you can totally add them into this assignment and I will help direct you to which one might be the best one to pull through this course. Yeah, great question.